present Councillors Anderson and Brogan. Councillor Buchanan? I'm not seeing you yet. Also present today are Councillors Convery and Cowie. Councillor Gray? No, not seeing you present. Also present today is Councillor Handybode. We have a number of officers in attendance as well as trades union representatives. And with that, I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, is anybody get any declaration of interest? Nope, I'm not seeing any. Agenda item number 2, minutes of the meeting of the Employee Issue Forum held on the 5th of March 2024. Can I just move that as a correct record, please? And can I have somebody to second it? Thank you, Councillor Convery. Got that?
Yeah.
Moving on to agenda item 3, and these are items for consideration. And it's pages 5 to 26 of your papers. Council-wide workforce monitoring, January to March 2024. And can I ask Michelle Millen to speak to this report?
This is a standard report that comes to this committee to provide an update on council-wide workforce monitoring. You will be familiar with this report. I will go through the report. I'm going to give a bit of a verbal update as well on our health and wellbeing policies and supports. We have been asked for that, and it is something we will circulate around the Equal Ops Forum, the GICF and the GITUC as well. And we are looking at doing some reminders to employees around that as well. So it was just to give you a verbal update on that when I come to it. And then if there's any questions at the end, happy to take them. So you will see section 4 in terms of attendance statistics. That is all detailed within there. It shows the council's absence rate, which is sitting at 6.3%. That also reflects where there's been a decrease and an increase and in what areas in terms of APT and C in the teachers figure, and also provides information on annual trends in terms of the financial year 23-24, which is at 5.4%. Further on down in that section, you'll see where those absences generally tend to occur, and you'll be familiar with the primary reasons being psychological and musculoskeletal conditions being the main reason. And also in that section, it shows the areas where the days have increased and decreased around absence. In terms of occupational health at section 5, you will see the number of referrals that have been made in terms of medical examinations and in terms of physiotherapy treatments and other supports that we have in place around these activities. And we have actively been promoting both with managers and employees to use these services. And it is positive that these are increasing in employees and managers are using these services. In terms of accidents and incidents, those are detailed at 6.1, and the number of accidents and incidents detailed there is sitting at 645, which has increased by 88 for the same period last year, and there's a further breakdown in that section as well. At section 7, it details the discipline, grievance and dignity at work hearings and any mediation referrals that have taken place across the council. And there's an analysis of leavers and exit interviews at section 8.1, and some information on labour turnover. And there's further analysis on the leavers and exit interviews there in terms of the total of 172 employees leaving the council that were eligible for an exit interview, which was a decrease of 3. And actually there was a total of 54 exit interviews. And you know that we do work hard with employees and with managers to try to get feedback. That is a positive figure in relation to some of the previous reports. We will continue to do that. In terms of section 9, there's information contained there on recruitment monitoring from January to March 24. We are going to be looking at this information kind of going forward. We did a bit of an exercise on the back of some activity in terms of queries that were raised at the Equal Ops Forum and Executive Committee and Finance and Corporate Committee around some of the data there, which was in relation to BME. So we looked at that data and we will share that information with you, which was looking positive. We tend to, in this report, look at the data in terms of number of BME, number of veterans, etc., But actually, when we looked at that in totality compared to the number of applicants overall, the numbers do sit significantly high when compared to the census information. So what we'll do is we'll also circulate that to you as well, just to give you some information on that. In terms of the rest of the report, there are no employee implications or financial implications, and I would refer committee back to section 2 in terms of the recommendations. To note the, the employee information monitoring contained within the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for you speaking about the BAME, because I know it's something we've been bringing up for quite a wee while, and it's encouraging to see that we're moving forward with that. Is there any questions? No, I can't see anybody. Can I recommend the... Sorry, can I just ask for recommendations on that and it to be agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm trying not to cough. Moving on to agenda item 4, which is pages 27 to 34 in your pack. Community and Enterprise Resources, Workforce Monitoring, January to March 2024. And back to you, Michelle. Can I ask you to speak to this report?
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Again, as you know, as well as presenting council information, at this meeting we present information.
Sorry.
That's okay, and we rotate that. So in terms of this meeting today, there is workforce monitoring information for community and enterprise resources. And again, this is a report you are familiar with. There's information detailed there. There is a mix in this resource, and the figure, section 4, is detailing the absence figure, which is sitting at 7.2%. That remains unchanged when compared to last month, and is just slightly higher at 0.9% in the council-wide figure. Turning over the page, just in terms of occupational health, you'll see for that resource were 412 referrals that were made this period. And that probably represents the size of the resource as well as the make-up of that resource in terms of the workforce that is there, in terms of the type of work that they do, particularly around the physiotherapy referrals as well as the psychological referrals. In terms of accidents and incidents, again, this is a kind of practical front-facing resource, and there were 51 accidents and incidents that were recorded during this period in the resource. Under section 4.4, there were 23 disciplinary hearings which were held in the resource, and it's decreased by 24 when compared to the same period last year. And this also details the appeals and the grievances that were heard during that period as well. In terms of section 4.5, there was 50 leavers within the resource in this period who were eligible for an exit interview. And that figure has increased by 13 when compared with the same period last year. We did manage to get 8 exit interviews conducted during that period, which is a decrease of 2. And again, just to remind members in the committee, the number of steps that we do take to encourage people to complete exit interview information in terms of contacting the employee, in terms of contacting the manager, and making that available online for ease as well. And they're also available to people in paper format if that's what they want to do to return that. In section 4.6 and 7, there's some further breakdown there just in terms of where we are in terms of recruitment or holding posts for saving, or where posts are transferring to another budget, or there's any ends to fixed term contracts. So that information is also contained there. And people obviously attending today's meeting will be very aware of some of the kind of wider discussions that take place around that in terms of the budget discussions, etc. we've had recently as well. And again, at section 5, that's staffing watch. That's the return that we do to COSLA. Slightly out of sync in terms of our normal reporting timescales, but that is provided to COSLA on a regular basis, and that shows a decrease of 121 in terms of the number of employees in post during that period. There are no employer financial implications of climate change, sustainability or other implications, and there's no change there in terms of policy for any impact assessments. So I would refer the committee back to section 2 in terms of the recommendation to note the workforce monitoring information in relation to community and enterprise resources.
Thanks, Michelle. Have we got any questions on that report? No? No, I can't see any. Can I ask for the recommendations on the report to be agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, Fusion Training Strategy. Can I ask Simon Hall to go through this, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'd like to share with you this afternoon how the training strategy for the Fusion system has been developed and how we're working to ensure that any employee who's going to interact with the system gets the training that they need to be able to do the tasks that they need within the system. And specifically, I'm going to look at how we've worked to make sure that employees within community and enterprise are going to get the training that they need in the format that's going to work for them. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So the first aspect of this, we worked with the various functions to identify some key aspects of it. So we needed to identify who the key user groups were. And those broke down into 3 main areas. We had our key users, and they were really the people who were involved in designing the system and making sure that it was configured to our requirements as an organisation, and it was going to work for us as SLC. The next group of users was what we called our professional users. So those are the employees who are going to be spending pretty much their life inside the system. They do their whole role will be worked in there. So that's quite often our colleagues in procurement, our colleagues in personnel, our colleagues in finance. So those core centralised teams is the bulk of their time and their work is spent within the Fusion system. And then the third, and by far the largest group of employees was what we called our end users. Employees who are end users will be dipping in and out of the system, doing various tasks as and when needed in and around their wider role. So there were 3 different user groups, and they required designed training that met their needs. So we then worked with those functional teams to identify what the processes those different user groups would need to understand and to what depth they would need training in, whether it would be a guide that they would need to take them through a particular task, or whether they needed to understand in depth how that particular element or function worked so they could do the tasks that they needed. So we understood what they needed trained in and the depth that they needed trained in. We then worked with those functional areas to identify the third key strand was what training format would best meet those training requirements for those 3 functional groups. So whether that was guides, user manuals, whether it would need to be Teams training events, whether they needed access to a training system where they could go in and play and practice those different tasks. And we worked with the functional teams to identify exactly what format would best suit those particular training needs. If we can move on to the next slide, please. For our end users, which as I said is by far our greatest and largest group of people who need training across the organisation, because of 3 main factors: the volume of people we're talking about, every single employee across South Lanarkshire Council, plus all of our councillors, will need to be able to understand how to use different aspects of the system, because of the variety of tasks that they will be conducting, but most importantly because of the sporadic nature that they will need to access this. They may need to book a piece of annual leave in January and then not do that activity until months later. So we designed the training so that we could meet those particular needs and people could pick up that training and use it at the point that they needed it. So for end users, we've identified several different strands that training could be featured in. So we've got quick reference guides, which are visual guides of how someone will access each and every step of the way. And it's quite literally a screenshot of the home screen of Fusion, highlighting this is the bit that you click on. It's got some on-screen text that shows them what they need to do and how they need to do it, and takes them step by step every step of the way through the process. And those quick reference guides are self-service. So if someone needs it now, they can go ahead, grab it, work through the quick reference guide and see what they need to do. But if they're not going to conduct that task for months, or maybe not even until a following year, that quick reference guide will still be available for them, and they can refresh their memory. We've also identified some key aspects of the system where maybe there's a more significant change to our current processes, or it's a key aspect of the system. And we've developed those quick reference guides a bit further into what I best describe as an e-learning walkthrough. If you imagine a video of someone working through the system, talking about, right, you're going to click on this particular menu, you put this information in this box. It's a bit like that, but it's interactive in the way that it will pause at the point where you need to do something. So if you need to click on a menu, that video will pause at the point where you need to click on the menu, and you as a learner will click on that, and then the video will talk you through the next stage of the process. So it's a very interactive walkthrough of the system. For some employees, the tasks that they're going to be doing in Fusion involve not just interacting with other services and other parts of the system, but organizations outside. So for instance, our procurement processes, where we're going to be buying goods or services from different organizations. And we wanted to give our employees who are in that role a bit of safety and security. So we were able to open up a training environment where someone who's already worked through the quick reference guide, they know the tasks that they need to conduct, but we're giving them a safe environment where they could practice that, make mistakes on volume or value of the order they were placing, and that wouldn't no money would be spent and nothing would go outside of the organization. So we're able to provide a training environment where people could safely practice some of those skills. Another strand is some of those facilitated drop-in sessions. So we've identified some key areas where there's a big change maybe in the system, or people want to be able to see it a bit more detailed. So sessions have been organized where people could book in, someone who knows that part of the system will work through and demo how to conduct a particular task in the system. But it's an opportunity where employees could ask questions of the person doing the session. The what ifs, in our service we do this in this particular way, or this is an area that we've got a challenge in, how does that work in the system? So it's been a great opportunity for people to wrestle with some of those challenging, how do I do this in the system type questions. So we've organized a range of those for different user groups. And the final strand is some services were able to identify process champions for particular aspects. People who we train up ahead of time that would know how to do those particular tasks. And they'd be almost the first port of call for questions. So if someone's read through the user guide on how to place a requisition for an item, but they're trying out on the system and they can't get it to work, they can go to that process champion and ask that question, rather than needing to refer to the central procurement team to get those questions. They're able to get the support and help that they needed when they needed it. So those are the different strands that we identified for end user training. If we can go on to the next slide, please. The next element was that we worked with what we called the Strategic Business Change Group. This group had representatives from the key functional areas who were working on designing the system, us from the training side, but importantly it had representatives from each resource there. So we're able to talk about what the system is doing, and on my side we're able to share the training plans for the different aspects of the system. And we were able to get some feedback on how that training strategy might work in their particular context. This was really useful because we're able to identify some local processes, particularly in community enterprise, where those local processes will interact with Fusion, and we'd need to be able to communicate some very specific messages. And I've given a couple of examples of that. For instance, in facilities, if anyone is making a claim for overtime, there will have been an authorization code provided by their management line before that, and that needs to be included in the Fusion system. And also for waste, you need to include the vehicle registration in the overtime claim so that can be processed effectively. So we're able to capture that key information that's specific for a service and communicate that to the groups when they need that. So we're able to develop some custom training to be delivered to those audiences. Beyond that, we're also able to identify some employees who might need some further support to be able to access the systems. The system is very intuitive, and you're able to get in and figure your way through, and with the tools that we've got available on the quick reference guides and some of our e-learning materials, that for the vast majority of our employees, that will help them to be able to do what they need to do. But we are very aware that some groups of employees don't have access necessary to technology, or don't have the skills to be able to access that technology. So we worked with the representatives in the Strategic Business Change Group to identify which groups of employees or which specific employees may be lacking in some of those skills to be able to use the device to access Fusion in the first place. And we've been working with those areas to start to develop some basic digital skills that will allow them to interact with Fusion. So we've already run a couple of sessions for facilities, tacking on to the in-service days that took place in February and May. And we're working with some of our other services, waste, grounds, fleet and roads, to be specific, to identify the best way to deliver that support. And whether we wait for Fusion to go live, we provide the digital support, and this is how you access Fusion, the things you need to do in Fusion, or whether we take Fusion out of the picture and work on the digital skills that someone might need to be able to do anything on the computer or a tablet or any other device, and then we can layer on top of that at a later time, and what people need to do in Fusion. So that group has been particularly helpful to identify some of those key challenges and how we can best meet those needs. Final slide, please. Where we're going from here, you may already be aware that back in April, the system went live for finance, procurement, and the projects. HR is due to go live later on in the summer. So we're reviewing the lessons learned from that go live, what's worked well, what we can enhance further. We're reviewing the training strategies that we've got in place to make sure that we deliver what is best for our employees, to be able to support them, to be able to do what they need to do. And we'll continue to work with our resources and our services to meet those needs. And all of those training options, particularly the self-service, will be available before go live, so that people can look at it, get ready for the system, in a system that many of our employees are already accessing, Learn Online. And once the system goes live, afterwards, our e-learning system, Learn Online, will transfer into Fusion. So all of the training materials about how to do different things in the system will be readily available there within Fusion. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Simon. Has anybody got any questions? No, I don't see anything. It's great to see, though, that we're providing so much support. I'd be one of those ones that would need step by step, 1, 2, 3, 4, to go through it all. So, you as well, Jerry. So thank you very much once again. On to agenda item 6, urgent business, which I have none of. So I just wish to thank everybody for coming along, and I shall close the meeting. Thank you.